Week 1 is in the books, and the Niners silenced the Jets' hype on Monday Night Football. Let's dive right into it before we give you our highlights of the week. Week 2 picks, crown another bum, and give a quick look at what shocked us and what was unsurprising from our first look at 2024 game action. Joey, we got to start with the Niners, the game that's fresh in our mind, ended about 20 minutes ago. The career game for Jordan Mason. Niners basically looked great from the jump. I mean, second drive on, they scored on every drive. You got to feel happy about week 1. In your mind, was it just a solid Niners performance, or was it also, the Jets looked like ass?
No, I was very impressed with the Niners to come out after all the stuff that's kind of happened in the last month with Pearsall, with just all the contracts, with McCaffrey seemingly last second not playing, although I saw Mason post-game was like, yeah, I knew Friday. It's like, okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not going to say like just replace McCaffrey with Mason, but I was very confident in Mason's ability to run the football. I mean, I'm not going to say he's like a top, but I mean, it's, in my opinion, the best backup running back. He probably starts on most teams. He's really good. I think he had $147 today, 28 carries. It's like the running game didn't miss a beat. I mean, is McCaffrey?
He hits the hole hard, man.
He fits the mold. He's a violent runner. He's fast. Most impressive thing might have been I think it was third and 3 or 4, and he catches a nice little out route. That was the thing that, why he probably didn't get more playing time, is he wasn't a great third down receiving running back, but by all accounts, he worked his butt off in the offseason to do that. And yeah, I mean, it allows you to kind of be like McCaffrey, just be beyond 100% when you're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, everything operated just fine. And then the Jets have a really good defense. Their front four is really good. Their corners are really good. And yeah, other than the first drive, they ran the ball at will, and Purdy hit guys that were wide open. And
Buck and Aikman were talking on the broadcast about when they met with Shanahan. Kyle was basically like, yeah, we're going to run the ball down their throat the whole game. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. It's cool to see Devo back there, but I wish they would have, have some confidence in some of these other running backs. They all just, I think I heard Brady talk about it one time. It's like there's a lot of guys you've never heard of that just need an opportunity, and let them fail if they're terrible. I wish maybe gave Mason a couple breathers there that weren't Deebo Samuel. Just can't afford to get him more hits than required. And let's see what Isaac Guerendo's got. Let's see what some of these other guys got. Other than that Jets one drive, and then just the Leonard Floyd being offside by 7 yards, and then just everything stops and it's a touchdown. They were good.
No complaints other than that McCaffrey was out. And I mean, you got the win in the bag, and McCaffrey didn't take any hits. So you're like, that's a win too.
Yeah. I mean, it turnover battle 2-0. I mean, the first couple drives, Fred Warner is kicking ass. I mean, he's just everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just it's nice, just
classic
smooth Monday Night Football win, and no real heart attack there.
Yeah, it was smooth from the beginning. No real jitters. Rodgers was okay, probably a C+, B-.
He had a couple throws. You're like, that was vintage, but again,
his pick wasn't his fault. That pass on the where they were trying to convert a fourth down was clearly PI on Lenore that they didn't call. But I mean, Rodgers was okay. Like I said, C+, B-. It was just the Niners running the ball at will against that vaunted Jets defense. So super routine run-of-the-mill Niners win. Makes you think this year's going to be a lot of the same from last year.
6 of 6.
Early MVP leader in the clubhouse, Jake Moody. Him and Brandon Aubrey duking it out.
Boswell too.
Boswell
5 for 5 yesterday.
Yeah. Kickers, absolute
Maybe
highlight
we'll talk
reel.
about it, but I saw the Dallas game when Aubrey drilled the 66er And then it went to like a delay of game again. McCarthy, like you had a really good game, but he just ruined the NFL record. And then they lined up from 71. I'm like, I'm not rooting for Dallas, but I hope this guy like 71. You're lining up for that, and then they pulled it. But whatever, that'd been pretty cool.
Yeah, kickers, the early MVPs of the season so far. But just a super quick recap of the Niner game there, because it was just a routine ho-hum victory against a Jets team that a lot of people thought would contend for the AFC. So great start for the Niners there. Their opponent next week, the Vikings, great start for them as well. Also a routine ho-hum victory, granted against a much worse opponent in the Giants. We trounced them. Darnold was great. He started 12 for 12. The defense looked awesome against the hapless Danny Dimes. His passer rating was like 14. He had a pick 6. The defense was flying everywhere. Van Ginkel was in the backfield. I think we had 5 sacks, 2 from Van Ginkel. Our new guy, Dallas Turner, the rookie, got a sack. Jonathan Grenard, our highly paid defensive end, got a sack. Catch any of the Vikings game scouting next week's opponent? What did you think?
Gotta be honest, nope. Didn't pay like $700 for Sunday ticket. I mean, I saw the highlights, but yeah, I mean the Giants are terrible. But hey,
yeah,
no, I mean, give credit where it's due. Convincing win.
We were favored by 1.5 and won by 22, and that's what you want to see early in the season is, beating the expectation significantly. So, you guys were favored by, I think, 3.5 tonight. You won by 13. So both of us are way ahead of expectation at this point, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not thrilled about going to Minnesota. Like I've said, I don't think the Niners have won there in 30 years. So we'll see. Plus the 10 a.m. games, but
we'll definitely get into the Pod Bowl preview here in a little bit, because last year when we went into that game, the Vikings were in despair. The Niners were still undefeated. We were like, oh man, this is one of the great games of the season, and then it ended up being kind of Cousins' best game as a Viking, and we won on Monday Night Football. This one's totally different circumstances. We're both 1-0. We'll get to it later on the matchup there, but excited about that one. Let's just do a quick whip around of week 1, starting with the first game. The Chiefs-Ravens game was awesome. Went down to the very last play. If Isaiah Likely's wearing white shoes, maybe that game goes into overtime, or Harbaugh goes for 2 and they win 28-27. Awesome game. Ravens' offensive line was a disaster in that game, and Lamar played like it was a playoff game. I mean, he was getting hit left and right. He was running like he was a running back and taking running back hits all game. Pretty crazy game, but as always, the Chiefs come out victorious. A lot of helpful calls for them as usual. But what'd you think of that first game of the year?
I mostly just thought, like, God, the NFL's just got it. Like, kickoff game, put these two powerhouse teams, and then of course, like, it comes down to like a freaking big toe at the end of the game, and it's just 3.5 hours of good TV. But the number one thing is the Chiefs look fast, really fast on offense. Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. Pacheco is like, I think Pacheco, like, I think Jordan Mason can have like a Isaiah Pacheco, like, starts his career. I think Pacheco's a bit bigger, but very violent runners. They're quick, late round picks. Well, he was a late round pick. Mason was an undrafted guy. But yeah, the Chiefs look fast. They look like, again, a
little bit off topic, but Pacheco, I don't know if I've ever seen a guy more violently running than him. Like, it's like his feet are angry at the ground. Like, every step he takes is just
he's
like,
really good.
Ah.
He's a guy like why you don't take Saquon or Zeke or Bijan Robinson. Look like what Atlanta gave her. Is Bijan better than Pacheco? I'm not sure.
Is he better than Jordan Mason?
Again, and it's like, it's cool. Like, you get all these, we'll get to the Falcons later, but yeah. No, the Chiefs look, offensively look really good.
The last thing the league needed was for Worthy to be that good, and of course, just right off the bat, he's amazing.
And then, they take what the Niners run with Debo all the time. They take that, like, fake pull the guard and do the end around to the receiver. And, Debo's, not slow, but he's more thicker and physical, and it's angry. Worthy was a blur. It's like no one's catching him. Like
Even
there he
Collinsworth was
goes.
like, meep, meep.
Yeah, I mean they look fast, really fast. Um,
Yeah.
Another huge win. I mean, it's a big game. Mahomes, I think, said it post game. Like this comes down to like where games are in January. And again,
And it comes down to a big toe. I mean, great start to the season. Great game. The next game was the Packers game against the Eagles in Brazil. And I want to, at the end of the pod, talk a little about the broadcast there, which was awful in my opinion. But the game itself, lots of storylines from that one. Love is hurt. Looks like he's out 4 weeks with an MCL. It was on the second to last play of the game. So it looks like Malik Willis is going to start for the Packers for at least 2 or 3 weeks. The field was an absolute disaster. Guys just slipping on basically every play. Barkley was the star of the game. Hurts looked okay. Both defenses looked terrible, but you may chalk that up to the field. That second game of the year where the Eagles pulled out that win in Brazil. Any takeaways from that one as a fan of a team that's an NFC contender that's going to have to deal with those teams?
yeah, Saquon looked really good. I was just thinking of like Hard Knocks with the GM saying like, we're not going to offer contract, but yeah, I think he had a hat trick. And to be honest, Philly looked better than I thought they would. I mean, they looked awful. Like obviously their late season swoon into the postseason last year. And
I texted you after 2 drives that it was the same old, same old.
I mean, granted, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of huge plays, both sides. With both teams, but that Jordan Love injury is nothing small, because Malik Willis is horrible. So I don't know what games they got coming up, but I mean,
they got Indy at home next week, and it's like, okay, normally they'd be favored by what, 4.5, 5 in that game. They're 4-point underdogs now. That shows you how much Malik Willis matters to the spread. Like,
I mean, he came in for
underdogs.
one play. Your one job is to like just be able to chuck it as far as you can, and you take it, get sacked. I mean, like
he's bad. I remember him playing for Tennessee in that. I think it was the second to last game of the season for them, and then they brought in Dobbs for the last game because they were like, "Look, we just need a competent human."
He's not as good as Will Levis, and we saw what he did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, pretty shocking for the.
I don't know how on earth. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like roster malpractice. Like, how is he?
Yeah, Sean Clifford, the only other quarterback on that roster, former Penn State player who I didn't think was any good in college. So it's like 2 horrible choices. Everybody's talking about if Love is out for, a significant amount of time, they should look into Jameis or Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Joe Flacco or whoever. But apparently LaFleur seems to think Love will be back sooner rather than later, maybe 2 or 3 weeks instead of the full 4 to 6. So, but that was crazy. The fact that, you have this crazy game in Brazil, bad field, Packers quarterback gets hurt. Saquon Barkley, every time he touches the ball, goes, "Oh my God, blocking!" Like actual places to run. Like it was clear from the beginning that, oh man, if he's healthy, they're going to be a problem on the ground. So that was pretty crazy. And then just some quick Sunday takeaways. Cowboys thumped the Browns. We called that on the pod last week. We had Dallas plus 2.5. I thought they should have been favored by 3 or more. And obviously they were by far the better team there. Dak got that huge contract before the game. Classic Jerry Jones, waiting until the last minute and then taking credit after the game like he's some kind of genius. I mean, it was odd, in my opinion, the timing of that, where CeeDee Lamb's one got announced a little bit earlier, and then Dak's comes minutes before the game. But I digress. Dallas looked great in that game, and it was just total domination.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. Another team with a whole lot of off-season chatter, and they came to play. They came ready to go. Defense looks really good. Offense, I mean, getting the ball to CeeDee Lamb all over the field. Dak looked good. I mean, he's a country mile better than what Cleveland threw out there with quarterbacks. So, I mean, Dallas is good. Dallas is a good football team in September.
Yeah, we took them over 9.5 on the pod as one of our picks, and it's like, I mean, obviously they're going to win 10, 11 games, especially with what we saw in that division, including my Washington pick, which was terrible in hindsight. Tampa Bay just absolutely throttled them. Baker Mayfield was the best player in the NFL in week 1. 4 touchdowns, perfect passer rating. Evans looked great. Godwin looked great. They completely carved up that Dan Quinn defense. So it's going to be a long-term project for them in Washington on the defensive side of the ball. So shout out to Baker Mayfield for a guy who flies under the radar, who's had a really good last year and a half. So good for him. Looking at around the league, I had just a few notes here. Texans, Dolphins, Chargers take care of business. None of them were all that impressive. Obviously, Houston's offense looked great, but they did give up some long bomb touchdowns to Richardson. The Chargers beat the listless Raiders, ran the ball like hell with J.K. Dobbins. I did want to talk about the Dolphins-Jags game, if you caught some of that one. Obviously, a lot of crazy stuff happened before that game. If you saw the video that came out today, it looks like Tyreek Hill may not have really been in the wrong at all in that situation, and that's going to be a much bigger story than we thought it was. But, I mean, that game, I picked Miami -3. It finished Miami -3, so we got a push. Very strange game. I thought Jacksonville, if ETN doesn't fumble through the end zone, they probably win that game pretty comfortably. So a little worrying about Miami. But then Jacksonville to lose that one in a game where it looked like you had it in the bag, rough start for those Jags.
Yeah, it's a terrible loss. Just can't happen if you're even trying to win the division, make the playoffs. It's just you have the game there. I mean, a fumble at the goal line. I mean, tough thing, but I mean, even more than that, it's a game you have to win if you're trying to take that next step as a team, especially on the road. And again, it's just like, Trevor, we're gonna pay you all that money. Like, make some plays here. Like, win the game.
He's got that Brian Thomas who looked awesome in that game. Christian Kirk, very good player. Evan Ingram, very good player. ETN, critical mistake, but very good player. The guy Bigsby, the backup running back, I watched him. I was like, he's got a lot of burst. I mean, Trevor, what is the excuse? Putting up 17 points. I mean, you got to do better.
Defense did his job against Miami. I mean, to hold them to what, game-winning field goal 2017 was.
Yep, 2017. Only gave up 20.
20 to Miami in September in Miami. Did your job.
Yeah, tough look there for Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. They face Cleveland at home this weekend, what becomes a must-win game for both teams. Let's look at a couple other games. The Bears were awful, down 17-0 at the half. Really got away with it, getting a W there. One of the worst winning performances I've seen in a long time. They got a blocked punt touchdown. They got a pick 6. I thought Caleb Williams was probably the second or third worst quarterback this week. He was awful. He threw for 93 yards on 14 completions. Just really, really bad. But the Bears were 1-0, so the fans are flying high. I just think that's an Eberflus coach team, and that's what they're going to look like. That was just a bad performance, and they got lucky with Will Levis giving them the ball there at the end of the game on that ridiculous flip play. But I wanted to just hammer home that, yes, the Bears are 1-0, but, man, did they not look good at all. And then I wanted to talk with you quickly about that Lions-Rams game. Lions win in overtime. They win in cover. But, I mean, the process of getting there, I really thought the Rams should have won that game.
Yeah, yes. To play with what they did on the offensive line, too, with all the injuries they had, plus Puka going out in the first half. But Stafford and Kupp were balling. And I probably, I don't know. I think I would have liked the Rams to be a little bit more aggressive on defense on that last drive to end the half. But yeah, I don't know. It's and then Detroit just ran it down their throat in overtime.
Yeah, that was a very Dan Campbell overtime period.
Which again, I don't know what to feel like overtime NFL. I don't know if I like how the playoffs are different than the regular season. I don't know. It's just weird. It's just, I don't know.
Throw in the
even if the Rams were to get the ball, like Detroit ran it. They would have gone it with like 3 minutes left. I don't know, just weird. But no, it's a game. The Rams, like, it's a tough game to open up in Detroit, like with how good they are, and to play that well.
Getting hurt, yeah.
To play that well and to not come out with a win, that's tough. But
And now they got a tough trip to Arizona coming up, who was shockingly good in their matchup against Buffalo and probably should have won that one. So yeah, Rams looking a little shaky after that loss. That, I mean, they should have won that game. They really were the better team in the fourth quarter. We're the better team for the majority of the game. So they really held Goff in check, and it was the running game that got the Lions to the end. And then obviously there's a bunch of teams that looked awful yesterday. Falcons, Bengals, Panthers, Raiders, all terrible, but we'll save them for Jack and the Bum of the Week discussions. Let's go to the Week 2 preview and look at some marquee games before we preview Niners, Vikings. You got Buffalo at Miami on Thursday Night Football. That's a really good one. I think I'm probably going to take Miami as one of our picks of the week, just because I think the team is going to be very motivated for that game given the events of this week. I think, man, if that's what they look like in like first gear in a game where they're clunky, they still had an 80-yard Tyreek touchdown. I think Sanders missed 2 chip shot field goals, so they could have had, 2 more touchdowns than they did. They could have scored 34. They only scored 20. I think Miami will turn it into high gear. But then Buffalo, I mean, Allen's got that little knock on his hand, but for the most part, he was just amazing in that game. So actually a pretty good Thursday night game, huh?
Yeah. Oh, it's a huge game. I mean, it's a game that could potentially decide the division. It's always good to bank a division win early in the season, especially if you're Buffalo on a short week on the road. Yeah, it is a big win for Buffalo. I mean, you can't lose at home to Arizona if you want to have aspirations of winning the division or, going anywhere in the postseason. But Josh Allen was able to save them, and yeah, it's a big early season game, and yeah, good for the Thursday night crowd.
Yeah, they got a lot of clunkers last year. I think they did the same thing where they kind of started off hot, and then it was just kind of a really bad lull in the middle of the season with some of those like Tennessee, Jacksonville games and whatnot. But good one to start this year for the Amazon crew, Buffalo and Miami. And then I wanted to call out a couple matchups. Obviously, there's 3 big ones, and we'll talk about those. But Cleveland at Jacksonville. To me, that's a loser leaves town game in week 2. I think whoever loses that game can kiss their season goodbye 2 games in, just because the vibes are at a 0 for Cleveland and they're very low for Jacksonville. So if you lose that game, I mean, those teams got to look at each other and be like, hey, this is going to be a slobber knocker. Like, we got to win this game or this season is going to be just miserable all the way around. And I lean Jacksonville in that game.
I probably would. I don't have any confidence in them either, but with what Cleveland's rolling out on offense right now, it's tough to watch.
Yeah.
And their defense, I mean, Dallas handed them, and I mean, Jaguars got some players on offense, so
yeah.
In Jacksonville, yeah, I'd probably lean Jaguars.
Yeah, that's just one of those games early in the year where you're like, we're going to look back at that in 5 or 6 weeks and be like, man, ever since they lost that game, it's been a tire fire. So that's one to watch. Cincinnati at Kansas City. KC's favored by 5.5. I thought that should be 7 or more. This game, every year Cincinnati burns people in the survivor pool. They start with an easy game and they just completely fall all over themselves. They were awful in that New England game. Turned the ball over a lot. Burrow did not want to throw the ball down the field. Chase was pretty lifeless after not practicing the entire offseason. No T. Higgins. Running game was bad with Mixon gone, and Zach Moss was pretty damn slow. I think Kansas City's just going to blow the doors off of them in that game. I mean, man, is it looking bad for Cincinnati early on.
I mean, I would say that, but it looks bad for them early, like every year, it feels like.
Every year in the Zach Taylor era.
This one feels a little different. They do feel like they aren't as talented. I know they've had some tough starts this season, but usually, if I remember, it's been against division rivals, tough Pittsburgh team, tough Browns team. I mean, the Patriots probably, if not the worst roster in the NFL.
Second.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
But hey, good for them. I mean, they ran the football up and down the field on the Bengals, and
they didn't turn it over.
I don't know if T. Higgins plays next week. I mean, but on the other hand, it is an opportunity. I mean, you win this game, you're not going to forget about losing to the Patriots, but you're right there, and 1-1. But damn, I mean, you're staring at 0-2 in the face.
Yeah, an absolute kick in the balls for Cincinnati, who they looked at the Ravens losing, and they probably thought, okay, we can get an early jump on them, and holy mackerel, they're already looking at 0-2. Tough situation there. The Sunday night game, I mean, that's going to be a good one. Chicago at Houston. So I say it's going to be a good one because I'm a Vikings fan, and I think Houston's going to absolutely blow the doors off of Chicago in that matchup. Stroud in week 1 looked just like he did last year, just an absolute beast. And Caleb Williams looked absolutely awful in his debut, going on the road against a quality team with a lot of veteran stars on that team. I mean, Diggs looked awesome in his debut for Houston. I think Houston blows the doors off of them. I think that's just an easy game for them. And then I wanted to talk with you about Atlanta, Philadelphia. Philly, they looked pretty good, especially on offense in that game. This is another one where like Atlanta's back is against the wall going into week 2. Like I saw some stats. Cousins operated from the shotgun or the pistol on 98% of snaps. When it was shotgun, he threw it on every snap. When it was pistol, he ran it on 81% of snaps. That tells me, because Kirk Cousins is at his best when he's doing play action. There was 0 play action in that game. That leads me to believe they don't think he's healthy at all. They don't want him running around, possibly into the face of a defender. Boy, did that look bad.
That was the game I got, 10 a.m. window. Yeah, I mean, things change real quickly. I mean, you were reading previews saying people thought Atlanta was going to win 11, 12 games, like win the division, all this, and that combined with how Tampa looked like.
And New Orleans.
Yeah. New, like they were awful. They were horrible on offense. Kyle Pitts is one of the most overrated draft picks in the history of the draft. They had nothing offensively. They couldn't block. I mean, my pick for defensive player of the year, TJ. I mean, I think he had probably 3 strip sacks, like taken away with. Yeah. I mean, he was in Kirk Cousins' jockstrap the entire game, and yeah, Kirk turned the ball over, which he's usually not awful, especially with regular 1 o'clock windows. At home, like
he looked rusty as hell and was terrified the whole game.
It was like things changed real quickly, and like all of a sudden, does it help or hurt that they took Penix with the first pick? I mean, if that's going to get loud.
Sure would have been nice to have like a left tackle or an impact pass rusher rather than a backup quarterback who's not contributing anything to the team.
It's like they always say, like, oh, we don't want to be stuck with like Desmond Ridder or like, they had Taylor Heineke. Was it Taylor Heineke last to play for them? Like, I think their owner Arthur Blank came out and said we want to like have a good QB room. Like, yeah, well, it also means you don't have one. Like,
yeah.
Again, I think I said it before. Like, you don't want your backup quarterback to really be competing with your starter. Like, that's never good.
Yeah.
For a team that's trying to win. I mean, the Chiefs.
Yeah, I picked them to win 11 games, and oh boy, does that look bad.
Like the Chiefs, they signed Carson Wentz. Like Carson Wentz, it's a good backup. Like, come in, potentially win a game or two. Like, but he's no chance. Obviously, I mean, you can have Hall of Famer be the backup. They're not competing with Mahomes, but I mean, even like Purdy. I mean, they're like Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs are not competing with Brock Purdy. Like, you don't want that. And Atlanta with an older guy who has 0 equity with Atlanta. I mean, he's had a really nice career, but like Atlanta Falcons fans and the team don't care what they did.
Yeah,
he did in Minnesota. Like, I mean, look how like just horribly wrong it's gone with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah,
and
the Browns had no connection to him. Yeah,
that could be other things, with him. But yeah, I mean, like it's not like they signed Tom Brady like the Bucs in the free agency. They signed a guy who's a bit older, coming off a major injury, and I
They
mean, I thought
signed
he looked better.
a B minus to B plus quarterback, and he performed at a D in week 1, and people are shocked. I'm like, Pittsburgh's a really good defense. TJ Watt might be the best player in the NFL, and Kirk Cousins is what, 9 months removed from a Achilles injury, and he's 36. Like, that's about what we expected it to look like. I just thought with all the offensive pieces and them adding guys like Judon late in the window, I thought, hey, maybe they're going to be much more dynamic than previous Falcons teams. But nope. Good win for Arthur Smith in the revenge game with 6 field goals, enough to get them over the line. Good on you.
I mean, it wasn't even close. They lost to a team that didn't score a touchdown.
Unbelievable. It's just like you said. That
now they go to
pick.
I mean, again, Philly's they had a tough finish, but I mean, they looked decent.
They don't even need to be dynamic in that game. They just run the ball.
Philly's not an easy place to play. Like Monday Night Football, the whole country. I mean, again, things change real quick. It could get really loud in Atlanta.
Yes, it could. And it could be, one of those situations that's an all-timer, like we look at certain other organizations where just a massive, swing and a miss with Pitts, a massive swing and a miss with Bijan Robinson, and then possibly the Penix pick as well. Pretty crazy. Let's preview the Pod Bowl. Last year, it was a big deal because it was the first time since we started the pod that our teams were facing each other, and the Vikings were on the ropes, and the Niners were trying to go undefeated. This year, it's different. It's week 2, so it's like, man, season started. We already got the Pod Bowl. You're coming to Minnesota again. You're favored by 5.5. I think since the Niner game ended, it's moved to 6.5 in some places because of how good your running game looked. And I mean, we looked good, but we played against a terrible Giants team. What are your thoughts going into next week? And then I'll give mine on how I think we can win this game.
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier. Minnesota's a really tough place for the Niners to play. I don't expect McCaffrey to play. Especially with the game being on turf and how good Mason looked. Like, why? What's the point?
They might as well have Williams and Ayuk and all these guys sit out as well, just to be safe.
Good.
Purdy needs a rest, man. He looked tired.
I mean, Ayuk dropped a couple balls. Maybe he needs to practice.
Tell Bosa to take the week off. He looked exhausted.
Well, I didn't realize. I saw Trent go off today, and I was like, what is this? And they're like, yeah, he just needs an IV. He's exhausted. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just, not to be super cliche, but don't turn the football over, run the ball, stop the run, like all that good stuff. Maybe have an extra couple eyes on Jefferson and, get pressure on Darnold and have him turn the ball over, which has been his issue most of his career. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's different. It's difficult. I don't know what to expect from Minnesota. Without Kirk, with Sam Darnold, I got barely saw anything highlights with the Minnesota and the Giants. So, I mean, the Niners are just like, I mean, again, if they play well, they're really hard to beat. Mm-hmm. Last year at Minnesota, they just could not stop anything on offense, and Steve Wilkes ran cover 0 at the end of the first half and gave him a touchdown. Like
that Jordan Addison play, one of the craziest plays of the year.
Like, just don't call cover 0. I mean, don't turn the ball over, run the ball.
I think we, I thought we would win against the Giants.
I think that against any team. I mean, I like.
It's the same with the Niners for almost every game, unless it's
the Niners games look the same when they like. So that's just the crazy part about last year's playoffs is the playoff games did not look like they were just like, oh my god. Usually, like today, it's like I feel like we're up like the Jets, and it's like, okay, it's 16-7, 20 kick field goal, like, and it's just like it's like
it's like the game's over. The Jets have brought in their backup quarterback halfway through the fourth quarter. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, they all look like, okay, it's 3-0, then it's like 10-0, 10-7, 17-7, and then all of a sudden it's like 30-17.
Yeah, you're like, oh, hey, the game's over. Sweet.
Yeah, so get off to a good start. Don't turn the ball. I mean, there's nothing specific about any.
The Niners are one of those teams that the formula is always the same. Like, run the ball, make some dynamic plays, get the ball to your playmakers. The
Limit-
Vikings are different where there's lots of variance here, like Sam Darnold going 12 for 12 and having a perfect passer rating in the first half was not on my bingo card. But the defense performing the way it did was. I mean, obviously the Giants, they might go down as the worst offensive team in the league at the end of the year, but just watching the game over again on the fantastic YouTube TV NFL Sunday Ticket, where you can just watch all the plays in like 32 minutes or something. They splice it all together after the game. It's so nice. But you just watch it and you're like, okay, our defensive line is an asset. It's been a while since I've been able to say that. We've had guys like Danielle Hunter that are good, but it's been since, the third or fourth year of that Zimmer system. I'm talking 2016, 17, 18, since we've had a defensive line that's just in the backfield all the time. And Van Ginkel was the best player on the field in that game, and we signed him for relatively cheap. Grenard was awesome. He's our highest paid defensive player, and he played like it. Dallas Turner is the number one defensive player off the board in the 2024 draft, and sure as shit looked like it. And then we play this 3 safety system where Josh Metellus is essentially half linebacker, half safety, and he just hit the shit out of everybody. Like every time they completed a pass or a runner somehow got into the secondary, he lit him up every time. And I was like, and Harrison Smith at age 35 looked great. He had a pick in the end zone to stop kind of the only Giants drive that was any good. So I think our formula for winning is very similar to last week. Get in the backfield, get pressure on Purdy, try to stop Mason and maybe McCaffrey if he plays from going off, and, hold the Niners to 20, 23 points and hope that, running the ball to Aaron Jones and gunning it to, Addison and Jefferson will get us there. I mean, there's no magic game plan that's different than other teams against the Niners, but with the Vikings, it's like, I am so excited that we have this new dimension where for the first time in a long time, like any play, we could blow it up. And that was really cool to see.
Pass rush could get to Purdy. I was actually kind of shocked at how decently the offensive line held up today, although the first couple of drives seemed like a couple of guys are getting pushed back into Purdy, but it's always tougher on the road too with the crowd and stuff like that. But yeah, the interesting thing too, the way the Jets, that one drive that happened without a 7-yard offside, everyone stops, and then Tyrod Taylor, that one drive is they attack the edges. And that's the same thing Detroit did. It's the same thing the Chiefs do against the Niners, like, with the way the Niners scheme is, and especially the defensive line, it's just get up the field. It's like, don't even have any peripheral vision. It's just go straight up the field.
Yeah.
And, you saw Rodgers throw a couple quick screens. They're running these tosses, like it is get around. So,
yeah. Problem with that is we don't have those kind of athletes. I mean, Aaron Jones is good, but he's not Breece Hall level agility and speed. And, Jefferson's not going to be taking the ball on an end around too often or wide receiver screen. So, it's the kind of thing where I feel like you guys had a lot of success on offense just because, like, Shanahan knows Robert Saleh's defense better than anybody.
It's that Seattle cover 3 that the Niners ran that's solid, runs, and
Shanahan was like, I know how to beat that. I'm going to run the ball down your throat.
It is. It's I'm trying to think, like, with Saleh, again, I want to, even McVay won the one game that mattered. I'm not going to say that because you have to win these games to get but you know what I'm saying, like with that NFC Championship,
the biggest one.
But the Niners have owned the Rams for the most part since McVay. They played Miami once and beat them. All these guys that come from Shanahan's, it's like, I've taught you everything you know. I know what you know, and I know how to beat it. And on top of that, the Niners, for most teams, just usually have better players.
Which helps, I've heard.
Yeah, which does help. But they were saying on the broadcast, a lot of credit goes to the Niners. Jordan Mason was undrafted, comes in, and is this guy freaking like?
It reminded me of Mike Shanahan back in the day, where every year for Denver, plug and play, new guy, 1,200-yard runner, 1,500-yard runner. It's like Clinton Portis, Olandis Gary, Mike Anderson, just like plug and play. I'm sure it's the same zone blocking scheme that Mike Shanahan was using back in the day is the same that his son is using. And it's like you put Jordan Mason in there and he looks like prime Adrian Peterson.
I want to give Jordan I when you watch him, I'm like, this guy looks
does look good.
He looks like he's ready to do some damage.
Yeah.
Like
the ultimate downhill violent runner, which is, you can't do that long term, but whoo.
Well, he was interesting. Post game, I saw he do the interview with Salters, and he was like I guess he told McCaffrey, like, I don't know how you do it. Like, it's his first game start, but 28 carries, getting hit. They're like, He's like, dude, I'm tired. Like this. And
I said that's the most carries he's had since 2016 when he was a junior in high school. I'm like, okay, that's a day's work.
Yeah, but I mean, like, dude, 28 carries, like, he had a 147 touchdown. Like, you can make some money, dude. Like, I mean, again,
everybody's like, oh, Isaiah Likely and J.K. Dobbins are going to be added on fantasy teams. I know who the number one ad is going to be on waiver wires this week. It'll be Jordan Mason. Let's head over to America's favorite segment, Joey's Jack and the Bum of the Week. Week 1 gave us a bevy of candidates, so many for so many reasons. Deshaun Watson's got to be. He would have been my vote. He was awful in that game. Another sexual assault lawsuit came out today, stemming from October of 2020. Curious timing on that one, but everything is just heading in the direction of he's going to get cut after this season, no matter what the dead cap is. Like, the city hates him. The teammates clearly don't like him. He hasn't been good at football in almost 4 years. I mean,
one of the wildest things.
It's just. And it's going to go down as one of the worst trades and worst contracts in the history of sports. And there's no way out from it. Like, he is not going to get better. I think it's all over for Deshaun Watson.
It's just wild. It really is.
From a consensus top 5 player in the sport to unplayably bad in, 30 something.
I know he had he's had some injury, but nothing like.
He just looks tense out there. I think he needs a rub down or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's just really, really
tense.
He
looks like he is feeling the weight of, or the embarrassment of everything.
Absolutely. And he should. I mean, the dude is an absolute joke. He'd be my pick. Bryce Young, we picked the Panthers 3 different times for Jack and the Bum of the Week last year, and I hesitated to put them on here again just because there's zero expectation. We all expect him to suck. But he is getting to the point, Bryce Young, where we're going to start to have to talk about Jamarcus Russell and Ryan Leaf. Like, he is that bad.
It's wild how it's almost like he should be happy that he plays on such an irrelevant franchise right now that no one even cares. Because you look at Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson has done miles more than Bryce Young. And Zach Wilson is a meme. Is it because he's got blonde hair and
has an affinity for cougars?
Yeah, exactly. Might date your mom. What is it? I mean, Bryce Young looks horrible.
From his first pass of the game was picked, and then his first pass of the second half was also picked, and they lost 47-10. I mean, it's the worst team in the NFL. He might be the worst quarterback in the NFL in terms of starters, and that trade. I mean, they got kind of lucky because Williams has looked bad so far, but man, that trade is going to go down as an all-timer, and I hate to put him in the same sentence.
It just sucks because I don't think the trade is it's bad, but I get the idea, right? The problem is you took him.
If you would have taken Stroud, the Bears would look
if you take Stroud, no one cares what you gave up.
Yeah.
No one.
And it makes the Bears look like the dumbest
problem
franchise.
For me is not the trade. You just whiffed.
Yeah. Yeah, playing off of that whole Caleb Williams scenario, I was going to nominate him, but I decided to nominate Levis.
I didn't even care to nominate him because it didn't even matter. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, it was just mediocre as shit. Will Levis would be on there just because 2 of the dumbest plays of the entire week. He has to be on there. The Bengals have to be a nominee. The worst loss of the season, probably for the first few weeks. I don't know how anyone could have a worse loss in the next few weeks than what the Bengals had against the Patriots when you're theoretically a Super Bowl contender and you lose to probably the worst team in the NFL and convincingly. Pretty crazy. And then the Giants obviously would be one of the teams I would put on there with how unbelievably bad they were against the Vikings. But Joey, you're going in a different direction with a team we already discussed a little bit.
Falcons, whole offseason of hope and promise and everything, and just a complete and total thud on opening day at home against, a really strong defense, but against an offense that couldn't score a touchdown. You got outscored by a kicker and Justin Fields. It's tough. I chose them based on expectations, and then result week one, just not good at all. And I think it's going to get really loud in Atlanta. Questions about Kirk, his health, just the whole operation.
Going into Philly on Monday night, week
Philly,
2.
You're looking at 0-2, and then you're behind the 8 ball because, look at the division. Tampa, New Orleans looked really good, and I just, I would, again, kind of the same thing with Bryce Young. Could have given to Will Levis because that's just probably might be the worst interception you see all year. But who cares?
Yeah. This was an Atlanta team that was one of the winners of the offseason, and those types of teams, man, you got to start hot or the fans just start losing their shit. And if I'm an Atlanta fan, I have no connection to Kirk Cousins. I have no connection to Raheem Morris. I have seen this general manager make bad pick after bad pick after bad pick. I'm starting to lose my shit, especially if they say they lose by a touchdown or more to Philly in week 2. All of a sudden, that's almost irredeemable. So a great choice for Falcons for Jack and the Bum of the Week. Just a horrible start to their season. Let's go over the You Like That picks of the week. We went 2-2-1 in week 1. We had the push on the Miami bet, and then we won with Kansas City and Dallas. We lost with Tennessee somehow, and then lost with Washington, which was just dead from the start. I'm going to give you 5 picks right off the bat. Miami -1, Seattle, New England over 37.5, the Rams +1, Kansas City -5.5, and Houston -6.5. So let's go over each game real quick. Miami against Buffalo on Thursday night at home. They're only favored by 1. I'm undeterred by the week 1 game against Jacksonville where they didn't look great and the whole Tyreek story. I'm good with betting on Miami again. We should have got there last week. We'll get there this week. Seattle, New England. I thought it was a shockingly low total. Obviously, New England's offense isn't very good, but Seattle's offense is good. Kenneth Walker was great. Those 3 wide receivers are great. Geno had a pretty damn good game. I think Seattle puts up enough points to get that over 37.5. The Rams, I want to get your take on this one. This opened up Rams, I think we're favored by 3. It has moved all the way to Rams +1 at Arizona. So Arizona is now favored by 1 in that game. What do you think of that one, given that, both teams are 0-1? This is one of those big early season matchups, and I think the Rams are a better team than Arizona.
I think the Rams are a lot better team. I think probably has partially got to do with the fact Puka's going to miss the game. Obviously, they blew it to Buffalo, but Arizona, a lot of people don't have high expectations for them, and they gave Buffalo all they could handle. Kyler's always tough. But, yeah, I would expect the Rams to win. Just better operation.
Yeah, better coach, better operation, and Stafford I thought looked really good. He just keeps chugging along. This is his 16th year in the league, and he looked as good as ever last night.
He's like, there are other guys like he doesn't move, but he is so like arm talent buzzword. Off the charts.
And it's never really dipped. Like we thought he had some injuries that would cause it to go away, but no, he's still zipping it better than almost anyone in the league. Kansas City -5.5 at home against Cincinnati. I think Kansas City just crushes them. I just think it's one of those games where I don't think Burrow is close to 100%. I think that wrist thing is a serious problem for him. I think Higgins, if he plays, is limited. I think if Chase plays, he's limited because he hasn't, had any practice reps all off season. They look disjointed. This is typical Cincinnati. They start slow every year. Give me Kansas City to win that one by margin. And then Houston -6.5. So this opened 3.5 before the game started yesterday. It jumped to 6.5 because Houston looked good and Chicago looked bad. This line should be much higher, in my opinion. If it was 20, I might consider betting on it. I think Houston's going to crush Chicago. I think Houston wins something like 34-16, something like that. Easy win for Houston for the great D'Amico Ryans, the great CJ Stroud, and that really great defense with some veteran additions there. So there's the 5. You like that picks of the week. Miami -1, Seattle, New England over 37.5. The Rams +1, Kansas City -5.5, and Houston -6.5. Joey, it's time for your Feels Great Baby, your wildest take. This is not a wild take, but it's one that you're very, very certain of.
Yeah, I'm trying. I think I was pretty wild with my takes before. I'm trying not to be super wild. I don't think this is. No, it's not wild at all. It is. It's the inevitable. It is what it is. And the Chiefs, they're really damn good. I mean, you watch it and like the Ravens are a really good football team. I know it was in Kansas City, but the Ravens, along with maybe a team here or two. I mean, I don't think Cincinnati's even. I mean, I know they beat them that one year. They're really not in their class. Like, is Buffalo. Kansas City is so far and away above. And, you think Baltimore might be that closest. And it's like, it's really like the game was close, but it really wasn't. I mean, for what it's not. Like,
yeah.
And
if Worthy continues to get better, it's just like now they have a new Tyreek Hill for cheap. How does this keep happening?
Yeah, I book them from New Orleans. I mean, I want to say that. I mean, booking tickets. Like, I don't, especially if those games are if they get 2 games in Arrowhead, like, come on. Like, no.
It really, in my opinion, is just a CJ Stroud masterclass is the only way that Kansas City's not playing in New Orleans in February.
Yeah, I just it's so crazy because you thought like Brady Belichick's just never gonna this feels more dominant.
You thought we'd never see it again.
Maybe because like I'm losing, my team's losing to it. Like Niners never played Brady in Super Bowl or anything, but like it's just like, damn, this is real difficult.
Yes, and it's just. As long as Reed is there, Reed is now by far the oldest coach in the league by I think 5 years. As long as he is there, and Mahomes is healthy, this is just going to continue to happen year after year. Where we do all this analysis of all these teams, and yet at the end of the year, it's the same thing.
Very similar to Brady, just like and the Patriots, like no one's really challenged them in the division.
Yeah,
like Raiders played the Chargers, and like the Chargers, I think are a bit like Harbaugh's going to make them better. They're going to be a tougher football team, but like, they're a little bit of a transition. They really don't have much weapons. I mean, although they ran the ball at the Raiders, pretty well. But the Raiders, like, I mean, enjoy your cigars after a couple of regular seasons last year, but like, what was that? And then it turns into a gong show at the end. Denver, like. We were all hitting the Bo Nix pack in the preseason, and what the hell was that?
Yeah. You're just an absolute cakewalk.
It's just like, until the Chargers get a little bit more weapons on offense and they start to gel with Harbaugh. I mean, it's just like they're going to have at least 1 home game, probably 2. And if they don't, they can play on the moon. It doesn't matter. Like,
So that's Joey's Feels Great Baby. Why even play the NFL season? Because
it does. You said it. It feels like Warriors Cleveland.
Yeah, 2014 to 2018.
I'm not going to say like Warriors Cleveland like with the Niners because I think the Niners. I think it's in a weird way. Everyone talks about all the quarterbacks, in the AFC. Yeah. I think the better teams are in the NFC.
The better rosters.
Yeah. Like, with the Niners, like Detroit, everyone craps on Dallas, but Dallas, if you play them anywhere other than January, they're a really good team.
Yeah,
Philly might be back a bit. I mean, like everyone laughs at Baker Mayfield, but Tampa's pretty good.
Yeah, but you go to the AFC and you're just like, unless someone gets hurt, it's going to be the same old, same old. Let's close the pod real quick, try to keep this one under an hour. I just had some early thoughts on the broadcast. So Obviously, there was a lot of criticism of the field on Friday in Sao Paulo. I think the worst problem was the broadcast. The entire game, the PA announcer was louder than the actual NBC announcers. The referee, something was wrong with his audio as well. And I thought Todd Blackledge as NBC's number 2 guy was awful. Like, absolutely horrendous. I never thought he was that good for college broadcast, but for NFL, it was just a disaster. And then you probably caught some of the Browns game yesterday with Brady making his debut, and not a warm reception for him from media folks and fans alike. So any thoughts on NFL broadcasts early on in the season?
NBC definitely has, like, they've got Carrie Underwood themes, and then here comes Tirico and Collinsworth, but other than that, I think their coverage is pretty tough. Like, I don't like, the football night in America. Like,
I do not like it.
Like, it's even the format to me is weird. Like, I don't even Jason Garrett. I mean, who cares? Like, was it
Terrible.
Jason McCourty? Or I don't even know which McCourty brother it is now.
Chris Sims.
Rodney Harrison makes me want to lick gasoline. Like,
Tony Dungy's just old and says the same 3 things.
Yeah, it's just not good. They have their A team, like Collinsworth, Rico. Like, I enjoy them, but my point is I don't expect much, especially when you put it on Peacock, and I can't flip to anything else for a commercial without going through a whole bunch of TV gymnastics.
Yeah.
And then what's his kid, Noah Eagle.
Noah Eagle, the Nepo baby.
Todd Blackledge. I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't. But no,
again, watching the Fox broadcast, freaking Greg Olsen is awesome.
Get to the thing, to get to the main story, the Brady.
Yeah.
Number one, I get why Fox did it. Greg Olsen was damn good. Like, I mean, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have said that before Brady, and I'll defend Brady here. This is a tough ass job. Like, it's because he knows these guys. He really doesn't want to get up there day one and be like, Deshaun Watson sucks ass.
Yeah.
Like, but he's not. And for being like the most famous guy alive, one of them, he has to come off as relatable, which I think he actually is in person. Like, I feel like I could have a beer with him, like, pretty chill, but like, it's hard to come off that way when you're just so rich and famous.
And in his mind,
and he's just never done it. I mean, what other like
there was a play where Watson was backpedaling, and Brady just says tight end. That's the only thing that came out of his mouth, because in Brady's mind, he's like, you have to throw it to the tight end. He's wide open. What are you doing? You fucking idiot. Oh, I can see that from up here. Get off the field and let me play.
He needs his thing. Like him or not, Tony Romo's got a thing. Like, Collinsworth is, oh, Mike, here we go. Like, I don't know. Like, he's got his thing. Brady needs to find. I think it could be like that guy who just knows. I don't know. I actually thought, in a weird way, I think I remember that play where he just said tight end. Like, be that. Like, just say what you would do. Like, just say, like, this guy's wide open. Like, don't be polished. Like, we could have just had Greg Olsen do that. We don't need you to be polished.
Do the off-the-cuff stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the best stuff. I mean, look at it with podcasts now. So the best stuff is not polished.
Yeah.
The best stuff is just raw, authentic things. That's why, that's what John Madden was, and he wasn't like, oh, hey, guys. I mean, he was, but then it's all about, turducken, and boom, he got his thing, right? Find your thing, Tom. I do think he got better in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the first half, especially that first time on camera, it was like, oh God, this guy, like, dude, I'm fighting for him. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, just say words and like look like
fill dead air, please.
Look like you got some blood flowing through your body. Holy crap. But yeah, I think I get better. Hopefully.
Yeah.
It's gotta be. I got to think about this too. It's gotta be so weird for him because, like, obviously he has his bad games. There's a pick or two, and like there's some criticism, but like he always got like I'm 7-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady. Like this has got to be like a tough week where he's like logs on the internet is like this guy sucks ass.
It's like the roast all over again. He's having to go through it again. It's like everybody's just shitting on him. I mean, I think he'll get better, and I think it's one of those things where maybe he over prepared like he does for a football game as a player, where there's all this stuff he wanted to say and he tried to get it all out. And, at other times he was silent because he didn't want to say the wrong thing. It's like, he'll get better. I think
legitimately, this was the first ever time he did this. Like, I'm trying to be like, it's honestly crazy he's even qualified. Like, what makes him qualified to do this?
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
It's Romo did it from week 1. He was great, and they're like, all right, you do it too. That's the whole thought process.
It was weird because I was watching Atlanta Pittsburgh, and that was now their 2 crew with Joe Davis and Greg Olsen.
Yeah.
And like a couple times they had to preview, like, here we go, Tom Brady's first game, Fox game of the week, and Greg Olsen's just like,
fuck that guy.
You just don't hear him talk. Like, I'm sure he's like he's known about this for a couple, but like this has got to sting.
Oh, absolutely, because he knows he's great at it. I don't know if he
feels vindicated. Like, I'm better. Like, everyone knows you're better than him now. Like, we all should have known that before because he's like done this.
Yeah.
I mean, even Mark Sanchez for Fox is better than just be.
He's pretty darn good. Yeah.
Normal. Like, just be regular. Like, what about Chris Collinsworth? Like, no one cares about Chris Collinsworth. No one even knows he was a player. I think he was. Like, I know he was. I don't know if he was like good or not. Who cares?
Wide receiver for the Bengals who was okay. And it's like, but
like this, like he's NBC's guy.
Yeah.
Like,
just find your groove and stick with it. If you're going to be the Romo one that's like, oh, Jim, there's a blitz coming off the edge. Yeah.
It's a completely different gig. But like Jason Kelsey, done the media of the pot. I think he's fantastic. I think it's easy. Piece of cake. The color guy for a TV, way harder. Way harder. But if I was just advising Tom, I'd just be like, just say what's on your mind. Like, it's just like, if you're like do the. I don't want him to copy Romo because I know he you don't think Tom Brady could be like, oh, this guy's coming, this guy's here we come, we got the Robert Blitz, whatever, all this stuff, nerd out, right? But like, just don't be stale milk.
Yes, commit to it, and
it makes it worse because the crew is so good.
Right.
Like, I think Kevin Burkhardt seems like the most chill. Like,
he's great. Aaron Andrews is great. And you're like, come on, Tom, just be great. Because he's doing the Super Bowl this year, so he's got to find it real quick. Real quick. Yeah. I mean, and these alternate broadcasts, we'll see how the Amazon goes this week with 106-year-old Al Michaels, who I've always liked, but man, he's getting real old. But like, I thought the Peacock one was a disaster, and I'm like, can we just stick with our, Fox, CBS, NBC, and then the Monday Night Football crew, which I think is the best in the game.
It's not even close now.
Yeah. So I just wanted to discuss that real quick because I think the Brady thing was actually like one of the 2 or 3 biggest stories of week 1. But there it is, folks. Week 1 in the NFL is in the books. We got the Pod Bowl coming up next week, and we previewed that for you. I think it's going to be a close one. I think the Niners probably win, but I say it's within 3 or 4. We'll see how that goes, and we'll come back and discuss it next week. One of us is going to be 2-0, so we know that for sure. We'll see you next week for another episode of the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. See you guys.